Have you been feeding a baby with your body and now you're ready to get your body back? Regardless of whether your baby is a few days old or a few weeks old or a few years old. Let's talk about weaning today. And let's get you set up for success so that both you and your baby can go through the weaning process with as little trauma as possible, given the situation that you are in. And if you are a healthcare provider and you have clients who reach out to you about weaning, whether you're a doula or a fellow lactation professional or a counselor who works with people in the perinatal stage, part one is all about weaning from nursing a baby from the body. And then part two will come up next week, and that's all about weaning from the pump. So those are two kind of different considerations. And so I'm going to break that up into two different parts. Let's get into it.
When I began breastfeeding, I was blindsided by how difficult it was. I may have thought I was prepared, but having known only a handful of people who had ever breastfed and only seeing it up close from a couple of them, I had a huge learning curve. Since then, I've become a doula, a lactation consultant, and a childbirth educator. I'm your host, Lo Nigrosh, and I welcome you to the Milk Making Minutes, where we explore breastfeeding experiences through the lens of systemic barriers so that you know your breastfeeding struggles are not your fault and your triumphs really are the miracles you feel they are.
There are quite a few considerations when it comes to weaning a baby. You're thinking about the comfort of your baby. You're also thinking about your own comfort. And you're thinking about how old your baby is. You're thinking about how much milk you have stashed. And you're thinking about how willing you are to supplement with other food given the age of your baby. Because if your baby is younger than 1, you will need to replace your milk with formula, whether that's cow's milk formula or soy formula, given whatever your situation is, if your baby has allergies or any other medical considerations that you're thinking about. We know we have this consideration of whether the baby has reached 1, which is that bare minimum of how old a baby needs to be to wean. But both the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization, they really recommend breastfeeding until at least 2 years old or until mom and baby are ready for weaning. Now, if your baby is nowhere close to 2 and you are really struggling and you are thinking, there is no way I will make it to 2, that's fine. I've got you. I'm going to help you. Because in the end, the second phrase of that is, or until mom or baby are ready to be done. So even though it is best, in quotes, for your baby to nurse until 2, given the perfect situation, we know that there are so many systemic and cultural barriers which make feeding our babies human milk until the age of 2 or beyond difficult, which means we also know that it is better for you, the person feeding the baby from your body, to be feeling as good as possible in the postpartum stage of life. So if that means you will feel better right now in this stage of life, if you wean, that is better for your baby than your baby receiving human milk. So if you need to wean because you know you will feel better mental health wise, that is better for your baby than receiving human milk. And so I, the internationally board certified lactation consultant and mom of 2 who fed my baby from my body for years, am giving you permission to wean no matter the age of your baby, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 years. Because it is more important for you to be fully present and as healthy as possible now in this postpartum stage than it is for your baby to receive human milk for the recommended time by the World Health Organization.
Are you pregnant or a new parent looking to ensure a better postpartum experience? Or are you a birth worker looking to improve your postpartum care skills? Check out Thriving After Birth, an online self-paced course by me, midwife and educator Tanya Tringali. It's 10 and a half hours of video content featuring experts in lactation, mental health, pelvic floor health, pediatric sleep issues. You also get worksheets and a workbook, as well as options to have a one-on-one session with me. Sign up at motherwitmaternity.com/thriving, and let's improve postpartum care together.
So with that out of the way, let's talk about the various ways you can go about this. So there are gradations of how you can go about weaning. The first in these gradations is a gradual weaning. The next is some sort of partial weaning. And then finally, there is an abrupt weaning. And only you can decide what is best for your family given the situation that you are in. So let's get into what each one of these weanings look like and how you can go about each one of them safely and why you might choose each one of these gradations. In a gradual weaning, you really start by looking at all of the nursing sessions that are happening in your day. If you have a young infant, there's a ton, right? Anywhere between 8 and 20 nursing sessions that are happening in a day, depending on how frequently your baby nurses. And you really want to start by thinking, which nursing session do I want to eliminate first? Typically, you don't want to start with those morning feeds because baby is taking in more milk in those morning feeds, and your body's making more milk in that time. And so it's going to be harder on your own body and more difficult for the baby to give up those feeds. So you would start with kind of maybe an evening feed, and you're going to replace that feed with something else. So if baby is younger than a year, you're going to replace that feed with formula or with your stashed milk. So if you have tons of milk stashed away, then you can replace it with your stashed milk. Now, if you are somebody who produces a lot of milk and you're dealing with oversupply, then you're also going to be thinking about your body simultaneously. If you feed your baby milk from another source and you do not feed your baby from your own body, fine, but you need to be paying attention to your body. If you feel uncomfortable, you're going to be treating your body with ice, with ibuprofen. And if you start to feel full, you are going to relieve that fullness just until you feel relief. So you're going to pump or hand express to relieve the fullness. You don't have to pump to empty, quote unquote, empty, just until you don't feel uncomfortable anymore. And then this is going to vary person to person. So if you are a really milky person, you have an oversupply, you might have to wait 5 days until you're not feeling super full once you've replaced that session. But if you're an average supplier or a low milk supplier, it might just be a day or two, but the average is about 3. After about 3 days, you can then choose another session to replace. And so you can see why this is gradual, because it's going to take a few weeks before you have replaced all 8 to 12 sessions in the day. And so then after a few weeks, you will have replaced every session that you have typically nursed the baby from your body with some other form of feeding the baby. So that's for a baby that is under a year. Now, you could do some sort of partial weaning instead. So this means, let's say you're returning to work or you're really tired and you cannot go any longer without getting a full night's sleep. And so somebody else is going to feed the baby, and baby is still going to wake, but somebody else is going to feed formula or feed pumped milk to the baby. And you are no longer going to wake up in the middle of the night and feed the baby or pump. Now, first of all, remember that if you have typically been pumping and now you're no longer going to wake up, that needs to be done gradually. A. B, you will notice a drop in your supply because supply runs on a 24-hour clock. But same thing, you can still continue to feed the baby when you are with the baby, but then when you are away from the baby or during those night feeds, you can start dropping one feed at a time every 3 days until gradually somebody else is feeding the baby or the baby is taking something else. So if, for instance, that you're going to be returning to work and you do not want to pump when you are at work, but you would like to continue to nurse when you are together, then leading up to that time at work so that you can regulate your supply, you can decide which nursing session you are going to eliminate first. So it would be sometime during your workday, during your future workday, you're going to feed the baby a bottle, only pump during that time to relieve pressure. And then you will do this a few weeks in advance of returning to work until by the time you return to work, your supply has regulated. Baby is used to taking the formula and the bottle. Make sure you are using paced bottle feeding during that time because it's good for babies regardless of whether or not they are going to be having breast milk during the day. It's good for formula fed babies as well. And that's how you would do that partial weaning. Now, if you have an older child who you would like to begin weaning, there are several ways to do this. And I always like to preface this conversation with my clients by saying this. And this is something I picked up from Janet Lansbury. She's a parent educator, and she has helped me really understand that my children are entitled to their big feelings. And so even though I am not an expert on the big feelings of our kids, I am not a psychologist, I like to help my clients see this too, because often I'm a little further along in the parenting journey than many of the people that I'm counseling because they have brand new babies. Not always, because sometimes they have babies that are the third or the fourth. But often when we're going through this weaning process, many people that I am counseling, they are so accustomed to using nursing as a way to calm every emotion of their babies. And I like to remind my clients that it is not our job as parents to stop all crying, even for our toddlers. It's just our job to remind them that we are there for them when they are crying. I like to say things to my weaning toddler like, I know you're really upset. You really want to nurse right now, and I'm not letting you. And that's okay. They can cry. They can be upset. They can throw their stuffies. They can have a big fit. It's okay for a toddler to have a big fit because that's them expressing their emotions. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can check out Janet Lansbury's podcast, Unruffled. I'll link it in the show notes because they feel really upset that they can't nurse. But some ways to make it a little easier so they don't have such big feelings. First of all, just use the method of don't offer, don't refuse. Often when kids are younger, we're constantly offering to nurse. So as they get older and older, just don't offer, but also when they come to you to nurse, don't refuse. Try to constantly be offering regular meals to fend off that hunger, and always have a water bottle or a container of milk available for them. Change up the daily routine. So if you're constantly nursing at certain times, change it up so that they're not getting cued in that, oh, now it's time to nurse. You can postpone them. So just by saying, we will in a minute, just a little bit longer. Oh, we will after we read some books. We will after we do this painting project. You can distract them with some exciting stuff. So if you know you're going to be weaning in a certain period, get some like exciting stuff ready to do, even if it's not expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive to be exciting for a toddler. So if you have a bunch of balloons, that's exciting and it's really cheap. You can buy balloons at the dollar store. So have some stuff available that's exciting to them that can be really distracting. So if you have a time set when you would like to wean, make sure you have some kinetic sand around, some sensory stuff, some noodles in a container that they can play with, things that you know that will be exciting for them and distracting. New stickers. You can continue to nurse, but shorten the length of each session. I think I talked about this in a previous episode now that I'm saying it out loud, but you can have songs set. So you know that, okay, we're only going to nurse until this song is over, or we're only going to nurse until the end of this nursery rhyme. And that can sometimes satisfy the child. You can talk about nursing and when the day that it will be over and have a celebration. Sometimes if nursing is going to end at the third birthday, then working up to that, shortening the sessions using some of these other techniques, and then having a celebration once that third birthday comes, and then that's the end of nursing. Maybe even getting rid of anything that's associated with nursing. And then making sure to be flexible during illness or travel, anytime like that when there might be an extra need for some extra comfort. I've also heard of parents putting Band-Aids on their nipples and just saying shop is closed once they've gotten down to those last few sessions. That can be pretty helpful for some parents. And then I want to bring up that I do have a bookshop and it's linked in my show notes. And I have some books, I'll add some more, but I have some books that are specific to talking to kids about the end of nursing. One in particular is called My Milk Will Go, Our Love Will Grow, a book for weaning. So if you purchase that book from my bookshop, it also benefits the Milk Making Minute. So this is a picture book that you can read to discuss the end of the nursing relationship and how even though you're done with nursing, you will still have that strong bond. So if you are wanting more personalized help with weaning, maybe you have a complicated situation. Maybe you've been trying to wean and you have a strong-willed toddler. I have had 2 of those. Maybe you have a complicated family situation or medical situation or an oversupply that you're dealing with, and you would like some individualized help. I would love to be the person that helps you navigate this. So please reach out to me. In many cases, I can bill your insurance directly, and if I can't, I can provide you a super bill so that your insurance can reimburse you for the lactation services, which they are required to pay for, given that it is a required service under the Affordable Care Act. If you are somebody who is on TikTok, I would love to see you follow me at Lo Nigrosh 4. I ask lots of fun questions on there, and then all sorts of people answer them, and they talk about what their experiences were given various situations. And it's a lot of fun. Lo Nigrosh 4. If you are a lactation professional, a birth worker, a licensed mental health professional, anyone who works with families in the perinatal stage of life, please come over to my Milk Making Minutes community group on Facebook. This is a place where we are building momentum to work together to change what support looks like in the perinatal stage of life so that we start to remove barriers for people who want to feed human milk to their babies. It starts with us working together, and that's what this group is all about. Families and supporters of families coming together to name the barriers that exist and to work together to overcome those barriers. I'll see you there.